This meeting is being recorded. Okay. We will now proceed. Does the board staff have any exhibits to introduce as evidence?
Yes, I do. Exhibit 1 is the petition to amend and request for hearing with the exhibits. And Exhibit 2, it's NMED's notice of intent to present technical testimony with exhibits. Mr. Hearing Officer, those are the exhibits received.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board members or any objections? All right, exhibits. I'm sorry. You say there's one exhibit, two?
There's 2 exhibits.
All right, so exhibits 1 and 2 are admitted into the record. If there are no other preliminary matters, we will move to testimony by the petitioner. We will begin with technical testimony. Does petitioner wish to make a brief opening statement?
Yes, I have a brief opening statement. Good afternoon, Hearing Officer Cates and members of the board. I am Mia Napolitano, Assistant General Counsel for the New Mexico Environment Department, petitioner in this matter. And I have with me Mr. Thomas Collins, who's an environmental scientist with the Radiation Control Bureau. And he will provide a summary of his pre-filed written technical testimony in just a bit. We are here before the board today because the Radiation Control Bureau has proposed several amendments to the Radiation Protection Regulations at 20.3 of the New Mexico Administrative Code, or NMAC. These proposed amendments are to align the New Mexico Radiation Protection Regulations with their federal counterparts. And the Bureau has also used this opportunity to clarify requirements, minor typographical errors, and state some citations. New Mexico administers its radiation.
Napolitano, can I interrupt you?
Yes.
Your audio was cutting out just a minute ago when I got the reporter waved me down that she was not able to catch that. So if you want to back up, I believe you were discussing aligning the regulations with federal requirements.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So we are here before the board because, yes, the proposed amendments are to align the New Mexico Radiation Protection Regulations with their federal counterparts. And the Bureau has also used this opportunity to clarify existing requirements, fix minor and typographical errors, and update citations. And New Mexico administers its radiation protection program through an agreement with the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or NRC. This agreement provides for discontinuance of the regulatory authority of the NRC and acceptance of that authority by the New Mexico Environment Department. And as an agreement state, New Mexico's state regulations must be compatible to the NRC's regulations. And this compatibility requirement is met through the promulgation of state regulations when necessary. NMED is proposing the adoption of amendments to 20.3.1, 20.3.3, 20.3.4, 20.3.5, 20.3.7, 23.12, and 20.3.15 NMAC. And the proposed amendments are located in NMED Exhibit 1 of the department's Notice of Intent to Present Technical Testimony, which was filed with the board on June 2nd. NMED Exhibit 2 is a comparison matrix table of the proposed amendments, which will help aid the board with its review of each amendment. So I do encourage the board to look at that table. I think it will be helpful. And I will now turn it over to our first and only witness, Mr. Thomas Collins, to be sworn in and present a summary of his written pre-filed testimony.
Ms. Napolitan, if I may, you called our attention to a particular table. Where is it again? Which table?
That should be NMED Exhibit 2 of the Ed Department's notice of intent.
Okay,
Do you
got it.
see-
Okay.
Do you see? Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So the state identifies Thomas Collins as its technical witness. Says here, please stand. I don't know if you need to stand. Mr. Collins, are you there?
Yes, sir. Or yes, Mr. Hearing Officer.
I'm trying to find it on the screen here. Okay. So let's see. What do we do here? The court reporter will administer the oath. Okay.
Mr. Collins, would you please raise your right hand to be sworn in? Where did you go? Mr. Collins, your video, the other right hand, please. Would you raise your right hand to, whoops.
I'm sorry, my video will just stall on one image.
Oh, okay. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, the petitioner may now present direct testimony on the proposed amendments.
Okay. All right. Can you please state your name for the record?
Thomas Collins,
Where are you currently employed?
the New Mexico Environment Department Radiation Control Bureau.
How long have you been employed with the New Mexico Environment Department?
11.5 years.
What is your current position with the New Mexico Environment Department?
I'm a radiation specialist, ESSA.
How long have you held that position?
2.5 years.
Can you please describe your typical duties and responsibilities in your position?
I perform inspections of facilities that possess radioactive material or produce ionizing radiation. I also perform the rulemaking functions for the Radiation Control Bureau. I also handle out-of-state radioactive material reciprocity, radiological service registration, and norm oil and gas compliance coordination.
And have you held other positions within the Radiation Control Bureau or the New Mexico Environment Department?
Yes, I've worked for the Air Quality Bureau for approximately 7 years and the Petroleum Storage Tank Bureau for approximately 2 years.
And what is your educational background?
I have a bachelor's degree in the science of biology from the University of New Mexico and a master's degree in environmental management from New Mexico Highlands University.
Did you pre-file your resume in this matter as NMED Exhibit 4?
Yes,
And did you pre-file written technical testimony in this matter as NMED Exhibit 3?
yes.
And have there been any changes since you pre-filed your technical testimony?
No,
Do you adopt your pre-filed written technical testimony today?
yes.
And can you please explain to the board why the Radiation Control Bureau is proposing these amendments?
New Mexico is an agreement state with the NRC, so that means state regulations must be compatible to the NRC regulations. The majority of the amendments being proposed to 20.3 NMAC are to align certain provisions within the state regulations with the federal NRC regulations. The remaining amendments being proposed to 20.3 NMAC are to address several minor and mostly typographical errors.
Okay. And could you please explain to the board what it means to be an agreement state and what happens if the Bureau's regulations do not meet the NRC compatibility requirements?
Okay. The state of New Mexico administers the radiation protection program through an agreement between the NRC and the state. The agreement provides for the discontinuance of the regulatory authority of the NRC and acceptance of that authority by the board and NMED. Although the NRC has discontinued its authority over New Mexico as an agreement state, the NRC maintains oversight authority to ensure that each state maintains program elements that are adequate to protect public health and safety and that are compatible with NRC requirements. If New Mexico fails to update the regulations to meet the compatibility requirements, we could fall under what's called heightened oversight. If we don't conform after that, then the NRC could take over New Mexico's radiation protection program and subject New Mexico licensees to higher licensure fees. An agreement states radiation control program is adequate to protect public health and safety if administration of the program provides reasonable assurance of protection of public health, safety in regards in regulating the handling, use, and storage of agreement material.
Could you now just please describe the NRC's review process for agreement states?
The NRC provides review summary sheets for the regulation amendments called Regulation Amendment Tracking System Identification Numbers, RATs, or RATs IDs. The RATs IDs are used to document the NRC's review of an agreement state's equivalent regulations. The RATs IDs applicable to this rulemaking are marked as New Mexico or NMED Exhibit 6. The RATs IDs are divided into several columns, included but not limited to the NRC regulation section, state section, and compatibility category. There are 6 different compatibility categories that the NRC uses to evaluate and classify the program elements of an agreement state. For example, compatibility category A means the state program element should be essentially identical to that of the NRC, whereas compatibility category C means the agreement state's program element must be more restrictive or can be more restrictive than the NRC program elements. In general, an agreement state's radiation control program is compatible with the NRC regulation program when the state program does not create conflicts, duplicates, gaps, or other conditions that would jeopardize uniform regulation of radioactive materials. The NRC will determine what program elements an agreement state must adopt in order to maintain an compatible program, to maintain an adequate and compatible program.
And does the NRC include established deadlines in the RATs IDs for the agreement states to meet the compatibility requirements?
Yes, each RATs ID has an established deadline. RCB has met the deadlines established in the applicable RATs IDs in the previous rulemaking. However, the NRC has informed RCB that it must make several corrections in order to meet the compatibility requirements imposed by the NRC. The NRC issued letters in 2017 and 2018 to RCB, informing RCB of several amendments it had to make in order to meet compatibility categories established in the RATs IDs. RCB made the corrections the NRC requests and is proposing those amendments to the board today.
And how did the Bureau inform the members of the public and the stakeholders of the proposed amendments to 20.3 and MAC?
NMED prepared public notices for rulemaking in English and Spanish. The public notices comply with the requirements in 20.1.1.301B in MAC. Pursuant to 20.1.1.301A in MAC, the public notice was provided to the public at least 60 days prior to the hearing. The public notice was published in 2 newspapers of general circulation within the state of New Mexico. It was also published in the New Mexico Registrar. NMED also posted a public notice on the EIB website, the Bureau website, and the Sunshine Portal. New Mexico Environment Department provided the public notice to the Legislative Council for distribution. NMED conducted additional research outreach by emailing and mailing via certified mail. Return receipt requested the public notice to its licensees. The public notice was also provided to the Small Business Regulatory Advisory Commission. The commission informed NMED that the proposed amendments would not pose a hardship to small business. The proposed amendments were provided to the Radiation Technology Advisory Council at its March 3rd, 2021 meeting. The RTAC approved of the amendments as proposed.
So did the department meet the public notice requirements contained in 20.1.1.301 NMAC?
Yes.
And did the Bureau receive any public feedback or comment on the proposed amendments?
No.
Could you please just provide a brief summary of the proposed amendments as they are outlined in NMED Exhibit 1?
The Radiation Control Bureau is proposing amendments to 20.3.1 NMAC, 20.3.3 NMAC, 20.3.4 NMAC, 20.3.5 NMAC, 20.3.7 NMAC, 20.3.12 NMAC, and 20.3.15 NMAC to align the New Mexico radiation protection regulations with their federal counterparts. The proposed amendments will be made to 1, definitions, 2, licensing of radioactive materials, and 3, requirements for possession, use, health, and safety of source material, byproduct material, and special nuclear material. The required changes are found in RATS IDs 2012-4, 2013-1, 2013-2, 2015-3, 2015-5, and 2015-5. These are all found in NMED Exhibit 6. Due to the complex nature of the NRC agreement state rulemaking process, RCB attached a spreadsheet to help aid the board with its review. If you look at the spreadsheet, New Mexico Exhibit 2, the comments column will discuss whether the change is a result of federally mandated requirement that the Radiation Control Bureau must adopt in order to keep its agreement state status, or if the change is an RCB correction to update its regulations and fix typographical errors.
Now, members of the board and hearing officer Cates, would you like Mr. Collins to go through each individual proposed amendment? I see some shaking heads, so I think you're muted, hearing officer Cates, if you're speaking.
Yeah, so I'm guessing probably not. How long would that take?
Let me ask Thomas, how long do you think that would take?
Hearing officer Cates, Madam Chair, members of the board, I believe that would take us approximately 2 hours. And I would like to state that most of these changes are typographical and grammatical and innocuous in effect.
Well, are there beyond the most of, are there substantive material changes that we ought to know about?
Hearing officer Cates, Madam Chair, members of the board, I don't believe so.
All right, thanks. I appreciate that. So we'll, I appreciate the question, but we'll take a pass on hearing all the particulars of the changes. Thank you.
Thank you. So now, at this time, hearing officer Cates, members of the board, Madam Chair, I would like to move the addition of NMED exhibits 1 through 29 into the record to and make those part of the administrative record in this matter.
So do we need permission from the hearing officer for that to happen?
Mr. Hearing Officer, you can call if there are any objections, and hearing
Oh,
none,
okay.
you can
Any
order them.
objections, any members of the board? No objections? And council, and how do we proceed from here?
You can just, for the record, you can state that the proffered exhibits are admitted.
All right, for the record, the exhibits are admitted. Thank you.
Thank you. And so members of the board, hearing officer Cates, if you have any questions about any of the amendments, we can answer those now, or if any other members of the public have questions, we can answer those.
So let's start with the board. And board members have any questions?
No, I don't.
So I have a few. The word radiation in New Mexico is fraught with a very complicated history and, of course, ongoing issues. And I note in some of the attachments that these provisions apply to largely to medical providers. Is that correct, Mr. Collins?
Hearing Officer Cates, Madam Chair, members of the board, they actually apply to the licensing of radioactive materials and also in the transport of radioactive materials. But a good portion of the people that this applies to do have radioactive materials for medical use.
Yeah, thank you for that. I note, though, just in scrolling through the many licenses that are issued for various radioactive material permissions, you have, for instance, New Mexico Department of Transportation. Why do they have one?
Excuse me, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question.
Hearing Officer Cates.
Yes, sir. New Mexico Department of Transportation is licensed by the state, I assume, for transport of radioactive materials. Can you just speak to us in layman's terms as to why do they have a license?
Hearing Officer Cates, Madam Chair, members of the board, the reason the New Mexico DOT has a license, the majority of their licenses are for what we consider density moisture gauges. These gauges are used for testing the density. They're paving the surface. They need to be able to test the density of the soil and the density of the asphalt or whatever they're laying over the soil in order to meet the engineering design for that road.
And Mr. Collins, would the same be true of, say, I noticed there are some local governments around the state who also are granted license, one of them being Bernalillo County Public Works Department. Is a similar sort of explanation?
Hearing Officer Cates, Madam Chair, members of the board, that is true.
And so I wondered, also going through this list about some of the private companies that are non-medical that have some measure of radioactive material license permissions. One of them would be, I'm just pulling this out randomly, Schulenberger Technology Corporation of Carlsbad. Now, Schulenberger, I think, is a pretty well-known oil field services company. So why would Schulenberger have a license for some sort of radioactive material?
Hearing Officer Cates, Madam Chair, members of the board, is Schlumberger, and they actually perform what's called well logging, and they use radioisotopes in the well to determine various structures that they've drilled through, whether they're porous or whether they've reached a commodity?
Yeah, thank you for the detail there. What about, say, I think of the Chino mine down by Silver City, also licensed for radioactive materials. Why do they need a license?
Hearing Officer Cates, Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm not sure about the Chino mine. Perhaps Michael Ortiz or one of my fellow RCB members could chime in.
Anybody?
Apparently they're not present. So I can make an assumption about Chino mine. I've been to the Chino mine, but not for the Radiation Control Bureau. They may have density moisture gauges because they have roads and things of that nature.
Excuse me, Tom, I can give you the detail. I was muted. I couldn't unmute. This is Michael Ortiz. I'm the program manager of the radiation protection programs. And the Chino Mines has several gauges that they use for measuring density of materials, mainly cesium-137 gamma emitters. And so they'll use them to actually determine density of all the materials that they mine. And that's why they have a license. So they're what's called a fixed gauge licensee. The density moisture gauges are portable gauges. So there's different types of gauges that have radioactive materials in them. And that's why Chino Mines is licensed by us. Sorry for not being able to unmute my phone. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I can answer those also.
No, I appreciate it. I just, again, struck by curiosity at some of the licensees, I suppose, here. And I guess a similar explanation would be in order for Taos gravel products. Again, a sort of a mining related company.
Taos gravel, this is Michael Ortiz again.
Yeah.
Members of the board and Mr. Cates. The Taos gravel products uses the same thing. They uses gauges to measure the density of materials, the flow of materials, and whether they're usable for sale or not, and to classify them based on their density of products.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate the edification, and again, it just fixes my curiosity a little bit. Does anybody else, board members, anybody from the public, anybody in the audience, have any questions for these witnesses? Three, two, one.
Hey, Pam, just again for the record, can you verify that people on the line can unmute themselves if they did have a question?
Yes, everyone can unmute themselves. I have no one that's on a phone line, nor have I received any email notifications of anyone wishing to question or make any kind of comments.
Thanks. Thank you. Appreciate that. We'll now move on to hearing non-technical testimony and take any written statements from members of the public. Any testimony must be limited to the proposed amendments. The board is unable to take testimony unrelated to the proposed amendments. So again, we'll not hear any non-technical testimony or written statements from the public. Anybody out there?
Hello, my name is Ken Gibson. I do not have a written statement. I did just want to comment, Chairman Cates and members of the board, just as a member and stakeholder in the process. We do appreciate the notice and the invite to actually join the hearing.
Thanks, sir. Thank you for that input. Is there any additional public comment? Anybody on the line? with that, where are we, Carly? I've lost my place here.
You can open it to the department if they would like to offer a closing statement at this time.
All right, so open to the state to offer any closing statement. Please go ahead.
I'm sorry, would you mind just repeating that? I heard a really loud beeping noise as soon as you were speaking.
Sorry, this is opportunity for the department to offer any closing comments.
Okay, yes, thank you. Yes, so Hearing Officer Cates, members of the board, the Bureau has put a lot of work into addressing the amendments the NRC is requiring them to make. The Bureau has involved the regulated community in the process and informed them of the proposed amendments. The Bureau has not received any opposition to the proposed amendments, so we ask that you consider adopting the regulations as we propose them in NMED Exhibit 1. And Hearing Officer Cates, I have pre-filed a proposed order and statement of reasons for the board's review if the board is able to deliberate and make a decision today. That is NMED Exhibit 29 of the department's notice of intent to present technical testimony. And if you want, I can always email the proposed order in Word format to the board or to the board administrator.
So as a point of order, that document, is it on the website? Is it available for our review before we vote?
Yes, it is on the, it is part of the department's notice of intent, which has been posted on the board's website, but it is in PDF format, so I can email that in a Word format if you would like.
Thank you, I appreciate it. It's in PDF format on the site. That I think that should suffice. Which brings us, I believe, or is that the closing statement?
Yes, Mr.
Okay. Good. Sounds good. Anybody on the board have any questions, comments, input? Is there anyone from the public out there on the line or waiting to weigh in? No, I take that as a no. And this brings us to part of the script where any rebuttal testimony is welcome. Barring any rebuttal testimony, I believe we can move to close the hearing.
That's correct, Mr. Hearing Officer.
Do we need a motion from a board member to close the hearing?
No, you can, I provided some language there towards the end that you should note for the record that a quorum did attend this hearing and then formally close it, and noting the time of the record closing.
Right, so we had a quorum today. I'd like to thank the board and everyone present for their participation today. The hearing notice indicated that a decision might be made at the conclusion of the hearing. The board may immediately deliberate and decide on the proposed regulatory changes at the conclusion of this hearing. And at this time, I will close the record of the public hearing record and let the record show that this hearing was adjourned at 1:44 p.m. And with that, I believe I turn it over to Madam Chairman Sweeney.
That is correct. And thank you, Madam Court Reporter, for your services today.
Thank you, Member Cates, for being the hearing officer, as well as your work today. Court Reporter, appreciate all your efforts and as well as Member Cates for taking us through that hearing. Now that the hearing is concluded, I wanted to just open it up if we would like to deliberate and make a decision today. If we do elect to deliberate immediately, I just want to open that up to see if what the members think right now. See some nods, yes. Yes, yeah, okay. Yes, Member Hunker, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I would be in favor of deliberating right now. I thank NMED for a very thorough job of not only preparing these rule changes, but outlining them in the matrix form. And it appears as though adequate notice was given. Stakeholders were all aware of this, and the lack of any opposing comments. It appears like we can go ahead and deliberate.
Thank you, Member Hunker. Yes, and I think I see some other nods from board members, some thumbs up from Member Bitzer. Appreciate that. So with that, if we, I just want to state since what looks like we'll be deliberating immediately to make a decision on the proposed amendments. If while deliberating, the board determines that additional testimony or documentary evidence is necessary for a proper decision on the proposed amendments, the board may, consistent with due process requirements, reopen the hearing for such additional evidence only. So I just wanted to make sure I state that. And I think we can go into all discussion items. I think Ms. Solaria, is that correct? We can deliberate now and, okay.
That's correct, Madam Chair.
All right, just double checking I didn't miss anything. With that, members, I'm opening the floor to discussion, deliberation to you all. Yes, Member Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just also want to thank the department for a very clear understanding of the changes that are made, and the table made it real easy to compare. I appreciate that. So it looks pretty straightforward. It's just to get in line with the federal requirements, nothing controversial, no opposition. It seems fairly clear cut to me, and I would vote to approve these amendments.
Thank you for your comments, Member Garcia. Appreciate those. Any other members have any other input or comments as we deliberate?
So
Yes, Member Cates.
Madam Chairman, I'm really struck by the absence of controversy around this, which I take as a vote of confidence in the regulatory regime. And, you know, I really expected, as I kind of indicated during the hearing, this is such a, you know, such a loaded issue here in the state of New Mexico, which has a truly unique history in this regard. And so, I guess I, you know, I'm comforted by the fact that it seems to have been so thoroughly vetted over the years, and that these changes are largely perfunctory.
Thank you, Member Cates. I appreciate your comments. And any other members? All right. If there's no other input from our members, I just wanted to also thank NMED and NMED's counsel. Thank you for all the documentation. It was rather extensive, but that chart really was very helpful. I appreciate that. Made it easy to review what was changing. And I know a lot of work went into that. And so thank you, everybody. And thank you for your due diligence to reach out to stakeholders as well and ensure public participation. And in particular with those stakeholders that may or may not be affected by these rule amendments. With that, I would like to open it up if for any motions or yes, Member Bitzer.
I'll move that we adopt and approve the department's amendments as submitted.
Thank you, Member Bitzer. Do I have a?
I second. Yeah, Member Duval, I second.
Thank you, Member Duval. I just want to look over to Legal Counsel Solari. I just want to make sure we had that framed okay for the record.
Yes, Madam Chair, that was appropriate.
Okay, thank you so much. If there's no other deliberation, I'm looking at our members here. Ms. Jones, would you mind doing a roll call vote on our motion to amend the rules?
Yes, I will. Member Bitzer,
Yes.
Member Cates,
Yes.
Member Duval.
I'm going to enter into the record that my last name is pronounced Duval.
Duval.
Yes, and I concur. Yes. Vote in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Member Garcia,
Yes.
Member Honker,
Yes.
Member Trujillo Davis,
Yes.
and Chair Sweeney.
Yes.
Chair Sweeney, the motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Jones, for that. And also thank you, Member Duval. Duval, did I say that right?
Duval, yes.
Duval, okay. Thank you for that clarification as well. With that, the motion passes and we are, let me get over to that. So with that, I will look to Ms. Jones and Legal Counsel Solaria. Do we stay on this link or do we go back now that we've addressed public hearing EIB 2109?
Right, we can go back. Again, I'll just to put a bow on it, so to speak. The board will issue its written decision. I would appreciate ED Counsel Ms. Napolitano emailing me a copy in Word form of the proposed statement of reasons so that the chair can sign it. And yes, to answer your question, Chair Sweeney, we can close out of this and we will just return to that original link this morning since that is technically the public meeting that is still on. So I will see everyone back there.
Great. So everyone go back to the link from this morning and we'll see you there in a couple of minutes.
Thank you.